Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Point Man podcast. It's been a minute since I've been able to sit behind the microphone and in front of the camera to talk to you guys or bring you an interview. And because of that, I'm sorry, but the podcast just had to take a step back in life while having a toddler running around and just different careers and all that sort of stuff. It just had to take a back seat. But with that being said, the podcast is now in the Counterculture network with the Anti-Hero podcast, Conduct of Becoming, and a few other podcasts and different entities out there. And I look forward to working with those people to hopefully bring you better interviews on a more timely fashion. All my fault for that one. But yeah, just looking forward to working with you guys or to working with them and to bring you better interviews and more consistent basis. Life just had to take over for a little bit, and the podcast had to take a step back. That being said, let me introduce today's guest. Today's guest is Mac Cashin. Mac is a chief of police in the town of Franconia, New Hampshire, and has been in law enforcement for 22 years. He talks about mental health within law enforcement in different joint avenues outside of the career field to hopefully bridge that gap between, being in full-time law enforcement to transitioning out. We talk about a joint training that he and I will be putting on together with his company, Specialized Training Solutions. And we also talk about mental health, like I said, within law enforcement and with his father. Mac has a couple funny stories that we talk about in the interview. And if you guys wouldn't mind, go to YouTube where you can subscribe to the Point Man podcast, go to Apple iTunes or Spotify where you can rate, or leave a comment on the podcast itself. If you guys want to see any guests, you can reach out on Instagram or email, which is pointmanpodcast@gmail.com. With that being said, let me bring you today's guest. Yeah, so basically, I have done it interviews before where I kind of miss out on the good stuff that we're like shooting the shit and whatnot before the actual podcast, and I'm like, that was 20 minutes that I needed to record, and
right.
I completely haven't done that before. So, I got the patch wall going on behind me. This is in the midst of, I started the podcast 4 years ago, and it's taken a back seat because of the move down here and a few other things with just career wise. It had to take a back seat, but I'm in the midst right now of finishing the studio, quote unquote studio.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
love it. Is this the first podcast you've done, or?
No, I've done a couple with New Hampshire 2A. Jared Mitchell, I think. He has one down south. He does with a buddy of his. Yeah, I've been on that a couple times.
Oh,
and
nice.
That might be it. But yeah. But you're right. Yeah. It's those in between conversations that sometimes get pretty entertaining.
Oh yeah, exactly. And it's been good. I've enjoyed it. I started it, like I said, 4 years ago, and it's kind of, I'm hoping it's going to grow more now, because I took a back seat from it, and I have a few guests, including yourself, coming on the show, and I'm excited to get restarted here. And I got what's it called, on a network called Counterculture Network. So we're basically a few other podcasts, the Anti-Hero podcast, Conduct of Becoming podcast, and myself, and there's a bunch of others that are in a network now to kind of grow our audience. So
good deal.
I'm hoping that. So why don't you start people off with
I just want you to know, I got all the stuff. I got my lemon water, my hot tea. I got a handful of cough drops. my paper towels in case. I'm so raspy, and that if I have to take a break to blow my nose or
just let me know
or cough, I apologize, and
no
I'll try to do it away from the mic so I don't cough and
trust me, I get it. No, I get I get in the background right now for me is the baby monitor because my wife is finishing up a month away on active duty orders right now for training, and so I've been playing single dad for about a month, and I say that half-heartedly. It's obviously not single dad. It's for the most part by myself. Yeah, it's a lot of work. Let me tell you.
Yeah, no, I just recently my wife went to Puerto Rico for a week, 10 days, and I've been going to SHOT Show for years.
Yeah,
for years, and every year, she's got the kids. Mine are grown; they're pretty independent, but for years I'm out for a week. In the middle of winter, and she's got to do all the hustle and bustle. So this year she went to Puerto Rico with a Christian organization to build roofs for people who lost them in the hurricane, and I stayed home with the kids, and we actually had a good time. We did lots of cool stuff, and my kids were easy on me. So I was pretty appreciative of that. They handle their business. That's what I tell them.
How old are they?
Almost 13, and the other one's 15 and a half. So they're just starting to drive. Great kids.
Boys, boy and a girl, or is it?
My son's the younger one, almost 13 next couple months. He's doing Civil Air Patrol. Yes. He loves it, and I'm kind of like nervous about him being so good at the paramilitary stuff. He could take to that pretty well. At the same time, I'm like super proud of him, right? Like, he's all like dudded up in his uniform, and his pins are perfect, his boots are shine. I'm like, that's my kid. Like, that's my son, right? Like, he can't find a water bottle 2 days in a row. But on Wednesdays at 6:30, homeboy is snap 2 ready to go, right?
That's awesome.
So I'm pretty proud of him. And my daughter's junior at St. J. She's just learning how to drive. So thank God I don't have any hair. Actually, I say that, like all dads joke about teaching their kids how to drive. She's been great. She's been super easy, and I think she's going to be a good wheelman like her dad.
Oh, that's good. That's good. You're almost at the you can see the light. I mean, you still have a few years to go, but
I can be like, here's $20. Go get this from the store because I don't want to go out.
Does it change the obviously the stressors change, but it's right now like I said, my wife being away, it's like I got to keep him alive for a month. He's 2.5, and so like my goal is
needs everything.
Everything.
Like, you're working on the potty, you're working on the daycare, you're working on everything.
It's it's like I said, it's to keep him alive and to make sure he's breathing by the time she gets back. And obviously we do our thing. We have our dad and do like time together and whatnot. But thank God for daycare. Like I said, it's very expensive. I didn't realize how friggin' expensive it is right now, and it's another mortgage payment upon itself. But that's good. So
I think that's one of the things that gets underestimated in our profession too, like just how demanding our profession compared to some others it is for. I have a master patrol officer. He works for me, and his wife is a sergeant, or should be a sergeant, or is a corporal now. But I got an eye on her for sergeant for where she works. Anyway, they're both in law enforcement, right? So they're just trying to time a day off together, let alone take care of their kids, let alone have like a stressful profession times 2. Like, talk about not trying to bring the stuff home.
It's awful. I get it. My wife's like I said, she's in the Air Guard right now, and she just got promoted there, and so she's finishing her training for that. And she also works forensics for a sheriff's department down in Mass full time. Mm-hmm. And with me being full time law enforcement and in the military, it's a lot. And you don't realize, especially now with working shifts, and if somebody gets a good shift, then the other person has to sacrifice, or vice versa. And it's a lot of give and take with like the dual law enforcement, dual military relationships. There's a lot to be said there, and it can be stressful, especially now with myself. I was talking to you a little bit earlier, but when I moved down to Massachusetts, I left full time in New Hampshire in 21, and then went back full time on like a temporary basis, and I've been doing that for a little over a year and almost a year and a half now. Yep. And I got approached for a full-time job down here. I ended up taking it, And now we're battling that because of the position I was able to get where I was working full-time in New Hampshire for the last year and a half. It was kind of make your own schedule for sake of argument. And so I would come up on her days off and I'd work, and then I do admin stuff from my office on the other days. And now I have to go back to working eves, working midnights, 3 to 11s or 11 to 7s, and we both have to balance that schedule. And it's a tad bit tough, but we're gonna figure it out.
Yeah, man. There's a reason I'm on a Tuesday night right now.
I was gonna say, well, Chiefs don't usually work that this hour, huh?
You're damn right we don't. And you know what? It's taking its fucking toll. I'm not going. Can I curse on this? That's okay to curse.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I'm driving around in the dark, going, "What am I doing? I was done with this 7 years ago." But it's actually, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I asked them to do it, so it's every once in a while I got to get out there and do it myself.
Yeah.
It's kind of like my whole thing right now is I don't want to give up. Right? I'm 47 years old. And I got 22 years in law enforcement, and I want to be just as viable of a crime deterrent at 47 as I was at 27 or 37. Right. And my body's telling me to get bent, and my mind's telling me not to give up. And there's quite a conflict going on right now, right? Yeah. I think my body might be winning, but dang, we're trying.
Yeah, you gotta unfold yourself out of the cruiser after you've been sitting there for an hour and a half, and like you make a car stop, and you're every body and every joint is aching and yelling at you. It's it can be tough. I get it. So why don't you tell people who you are and where you come from and all of that? Give me a little bit of background.
I'll give you. I have no cool background story. I'm not like didn't do special forces. I never was in the military. I'm some fat schmuck from New York.
What part of New York?
I grew up in New York, just outside of New York City, in Rockland County, in a town called Nyack. Still very fond of that town and the friends that I made, my lifelong friends, the tennis posse, in effect. I was on the teams. I played on the tennis team. Basketball team. So that was my team's experience. Went to New England College for a couple of years. Made some more great friends that I'm still friends with today. Had a lot of fun, made a fair amount of mistakes, touched that stove a couple times before I realized it was hot, but live and learn. Let's just say I was in the back seat before I was in the front seat of a police car.
Well, that's what they say. It makes a good cop. You know what I mean? It's somebody who can relate.
Nothing that kept me from being a cop. So that's good. Then from there, I went to UNH for 3 years. And your math is right. That's 5 years of college. I did an abroad program called Semester at Sea. Traveled around the world. Got to get a real taste of a worldly perspective of what's going on in this world. That was back in '99, though. The world's changed since then. Yeah. And then I needed a job. I applied to a couple different jobs. I met a girl in college who's now my wife of 20-something years.
I'm going to get a date, kind of at least
she got a job. Yeah. She got a job in St. Johnsbury teaching. And so I took the first job I could find. I applied to the groundskeeper job at St. Johnsbury Academy, New Hampshire State Police, Vermont State Police, and there was this little town called Haverhill that was hiring that my mother-in-law cut the ad out. So I took and failed the state police test. The bench was a little much for me at the time. I was a fluffy college kid, had way too much fun. But first test I passed was Haverhill PD. I had visions of going state police that rapidly evaporated. I did a couple years at Haverhill, 5 years in Orford, a couple more years at Haverhill, and then I think I got 12 of Franconia now. So yeah, it's been a journey.
Sounds like it.
About 4 or 5 years ago, I started a little side gig called Specialized Training Solutions. I have a passion and love for teaching people how to be better with their firearms. I have a philosophy that the more education we can get out there, the more accidents we can reduce, the overall benefit for the New Hampshire 2A community. Right. So less of the I didn't know how the gun worked accidents where people get hurt. I'm a believer in the 2A movement and the right to bear arms, but I also am against stupidity, right? Yeah. So the more we can educate, the more we can train, the better these folks are to make decisions. And sometimes it's not even training how to use the gun. Sometimes it's just training how to make a good choice, right? Yep. How to carry, what to carry. giving them some life experience on the range, giving them a safe environment to learn for all different levels of student. I got into competition shooting, 15 years ago, and that's been my like hobby passion. I freaking love shooting USPSA. I shoot for Atlas. Well, it's kind of weird. I think I shoot for Atlas Gunworks.
Would they say the same?
I might just be like the fluffy mascot that they let hang out. I'm not winning all the matches. Some of the other guys are. You know, my friends Mikey Pan, Dave Wampler, Kevin Gorski. There's a whole bunch of the dudes that are pro shooters that are winning the stuff and the things. I usually just go have a good time and try to put up some numbers, and one day I'll unleash the greatness and jump to GM. And stuff, but I'm kind of
get it.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. But I wear the jersey. I'm proud to be any what way associated with those guys. The owner is a dear personal friend, and they make the best guns on the planet, and I'm honored to be shooting their guns and to be associated with that company.
That's good.
It's been the passion of my last 15 years. Some of my best friends come out of that shooting community. We have some great times. So yeah, it's good. It's good shit.
Yeah, it's actually something I told my wife after we met and our week-long class together. I said I wanted to get into competition shooting, and it seems like, because I could tell your passion for it and how much you enjoyed it, and it just seems like the type of people I want to be around. And like you said, you don't have to go out there. Yeah, we're all alpha males. I get it. You know, we all want to win, but we're not going to win every match. And as far as I'm concerned, you can take something away from even when you lose. So it makes you better. And especially with your company, if you don't do well and it's because of, for whatever it is, I think you actually learn more when you lose compared to when you win. So like, you go there and you have an off week or off competition, whatever it is, and you don't shoot that well, but you can actually, you gain the knowledge of what you did wrong and try to incorporate that into the next class you're teaching.
Absolutely. I have a intro to USPSA class, not on the books yet, but it's coming for people who want to get into the sport, who don't know anything about it, who want to try it. Usually well-attended class. People really enjoy it because it is that thing, right, where you go not knowing. And the hardest part of the first match is just showing up. It is a welcoming community of like-minded individual. You might have an accountant, a plumber, a tattoo artist, a contractor, all walks of life.
Yeah.
But they're all passionate about this. They're passionate about safety, and they want to see you do well. Nobody's out there to get you. Right? They want to see you be the best that you can be at the sport. So the club I shoot at, Vermont Green Mountain Practical Shooters, a bunch of great guys. They took me under their wing 15 some odd years ago. And I just love it. It's also, for a long time, I've been doing a lot of shooting where you go out to the range and you dump 30 rounds and you feel like a badass, right? Where you're like, okay, I can hit that pumpkin at 100 yards over and over. I can blow it right up. Wow, so awesome, right?
Meanwhile, your heart rate's at like 80, 85.
Yeah, right. And then the first time you step on that line and you get measured against the plumber, the contractor, the tattoo artist.
Yeah.
And you realize, wow, I've done a lot of shooting, but these guys have got something else figured out. That balance of speed and accuracy, which I would say very much does relate into the profession that we've chosen, because that speed and accuracy balance, whether it be with a $6,000 competition gun or your standard duty Glock, the skills are there or they're not. And if they're there because you practice them, they're going to be there when you need them. So I found that some of the best cops that I have on the line are the guys who are willing to get out there and be tested. Might not look real pretty the first time, and everybody gets DQ'd at some point, but get out there and see what you can do.
It's like that video they showed us the end of our class. I think it was the end of, I forget exactly where in that week, but it's that compilation of actual officer involved shootings and then how competition shooting relates into those officer involved shootings. Every single movement you're doing, whether you're in the competition, you're going around from one barrier and you're porting another window and shooting through that window or whatever it is, or in real life where you're trying to get behind a vehicle and shoot over the whatever type of cover concealment you have right there. That's real life, and you're using the same exact skills. And it's a two-way shooting range in real life, and I want to practice
Mhm.
this stuff before I actually have to go into a two-way shooting range and have to see if my skills are tested. You know what I mean?
I absolutely do, and it's telling that was a week-long patrol rifle instructor, I believe it was at
Yeah.
Ridgeline. And Ridgeline is one of, if not the elite training facility in the country, by far the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And if they made a point of making sure you watch that video as part of their week-long rifle instructor class in an elite training facility, you can't be like, oh, that's just a game.
Yeah.
Anybody who goes out there and skull fucks it, which we saw plenty of that day, right? They're like, this is stupid. This isn't real. And I'm like, what's not real is that you couldn't produce a result on demand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Rick Crawley from Achilles Heel is big on that, producing results on demand, right? He's got his man card drill, and he wants to see you produce a result on command every time with consistency. And I got a lot of respect for him and what he does. One day I'm gonna have a business like him when I grow up and be a big boy.
When we find out what we want to do in real, when we become adults.
Right. So yeah, it's super fun. I'm not training elite operators.
Not yet.
I'm more focused on the intro level. I like getting new shooters, lady shooters, folks that haven't shot in a while. I got family classes for people who want to introduce their family to guns the right way. I have classes that are just informational. Got a real cool one coming up. So you went to New Hampshire Police Standard Training at some point for testing.
Yep.
Remember Six Gun Ferguson?
No. Oh, is that
Vertra?
Yes.
He ran the Vertra. Skinny guy, beard.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
He always 30 plus years.
He was.
Everybody knows Ferguson.
He was oh my God, the Sims guy. He would always be like the bad guy during Sims and whatnot. And
he lit up. He shot more cops.
Yeah.
So before all that, when he was the chief firearms instructor, he also taught the revolver class.
Okay.
Back in the day, I took one of the last revolver classes that Police Standards and Training ever offered for revolver instructor.
No shit.
So I could still qualify people on a wheel gun.
And that's still our course of fire until this year.
Yeah, not let the cat out of the bag. Ferguson's retiring, and guess who's guest instructing a revolver class in northern New Hampshire with STS?
That's awesome.
It's going to be sick. So we got to go lesson plans. He was all about it, and I got a whole group of guys up here who are going to bust out the wheel guns and some holsters and their speed loaders, and we're going to have a training day on revolver skills.
I mean, I think that there still is a place for the revolver. I mean, that's just me. You can put that revolver on this table and sit there for years, and you're not going to have to worry about the springs or anything like that. That you pull the trigger, it's still going to fire.
You got six bangs in a row.
Yeah. Compared to a pistol where you have to worry about the springs, there's a lot more to go wrong with your generic pistol than there is a revolver. So I think it still has its capability.
Yeah. And again, going back to the safety part, the revolvers are still out there. They're pretty common. We come across them. If we know how to manipulate, how to function, how to shoot them well, and that knowledge is kind of getting lost because everybody's shooting semi-automatic handguns. I got a really good sense of people really excited to get this old school knowledge from a professional who used to teach this to all the cops.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a cool class. I can't wait to get Six Gun Ferguson up here. I got a date for that. I'll tell you later. But
that's a good nickname too. I would embrace that nickname if I were him.
Oh yeah.
So what made you want to get into policing when you were growing up? Was there anything that was your driving force behind it or anything like that?
Not a thing. My dad was a state trooper in New York. 26
so that
years.
that didn't bear anything,
Nope. I didn't want to do
really?
it. I was like, well, I mean, that's not true. I saw how it provided for my family, right?
Okay.
So it was always in the back of my head, like, do whatever you want. The world's your oyster. Don't fuck up enough where you can't get a police job, right?
Yeah.
I came close. I tested those waters quite a few times. And when
it's that cool line of 51-49, right?
Yeah.
51% cop, 49% criminal, and
I was right there. Henniker PD and I were good friends. Funny story. I was in the 132.
Okay.
And this is true too. There was a guy, he was in my squad because Cashin, his last name was Berry. His name's Nate Berry. He was sitting in front of me. He was going through for Henniker PD. He was part-time for years for them. Well, 3 years prior, I was out back at the end of a soccer field, my first week of summer sim, with a bunch of kids I didn't know, hacky sacking in the dark. And I'm like, wait a minute. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we hacky sacked in the parking lot under the lights. Saturday, we went across the covered bridge and went to back at the soccer field. Why are we circling up the hacky sack in the dark? This doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Then I saw the lighter go off, and I was like, oh, I know what we're doing.
Yeah.
A little game of puff, puff, pass. So no shit. We're playing the game of puff, puff, pass, and all of a sudden, these 3 flashlights come on. What are you guys doing? And this one Canadian kid, Lee, takes the joint and launches it like a fucking rocket ship through the sky. And instead of just dropping it and stepping on it, like, mind you, this is like 90, 96, 97.
Oh, so like weed at the time was you're going to prison.
So wicked illegal, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a major problem. So they line us up, and I'd never smoked weed. This is like one of the second or third times I ever smoked weed. They line us up, and they march us around the bushes into the front door of Henniker PD. The guys were in the PD with the windows open because it's summertime, typing a report, and they smelt the weed in the air. They literally walk outside the police department, look in the bushes, and see us freaking 8 idiots.
Yeah.
Walk around the bushes and bust every one of us.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
and
awesome.
So yeah, we smoked weed behind the Henniker Police Department. It was their temporary PD while they were building their new one. I think they're still in that one now. But Nate Berry, the first 2 weeks of the academy, you can't talk, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. It's completely.
Yeah,
I mean, I went through in 2010 with the 152, and back then for me it was the same thing. You can't. I completely forgot about that.
Well, this guy Berry keeps looking back at me, and I can see his name, but you can't see what PD he's from, right? You don't know. You can't talk to him.
Yeah.
And he keeps looking back at me, and I'm looking down at him like, what the fuck, bro? Like, what's your deal? And then finally, week 3 comes, and he goes, "Did you go to New England College?" And I'm like, "Officer Berry." Oh, yeah. So I went to the academy with one of the guys that busted me.
That's awesome. That's a good story. I like that. Too funny.
No, I had no plan to be a cop. It was not on my radar. And then it came time where I needed a job. And so it provided for my family. And so I looked at it, and, you know, it was a hard learning curve at first. But once I got it, you know, I feel proud of what I've done in 20-something years.
Oh, definitely.
Never thought I'd be a chief of police ever. I don't think anybody who's ever trained me would ever have thought I was going to be a chief of police, even in a small town. My dad used to tease me relentlessly when I was a sergeant because it was a 3-man, 4-man PD. He goes, how's the life in the big city, Sergeant of 1? And I'm like, thanks, Dad.
My dad, cut me some slack here.
Yeah, I mean, he was his own sergeant of like 30, 40 guys in the barracks, and he loved teasing me.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
That's
No, that's good. How long did Dad do it for New York State Police?
He did 26 years.
Okay.
New York State Police, and there was some wild times back then. I got stories that I probably shouldn't repeat. Just absolutely. That's kind of stuff that they make Super Troopers movies out of, right?
Yep.
Like,
there's a reason as to why all those laws that say we can't do things now, because
they
were done in the past.
He did them.
Yeah. No, that's good. So you said you worked. What was it? You started off in Haverhill after failing the state police exam.
Yep, I tried twice actually and failed the bench both times.
Yeah.
And I crushed it because it was a matter of a different percentile for the state.
Okay.
And I just didn't have. I was a big boy, and I've never been good at benching, and I just never got it up. But I got up for Haverhill, and there was 26 guys in the line, and 2 of us got selected, and it was kind of go from there.
Even back then, I mean, for people who don't know, Haverhill's what? How big is the population of Haverhill?
It's like 5 towns, and honestly, I don't even remember anymore. I'm still part-time for them.
Yeah.
But I'd have a hard time.
I think it's
guessing. It's pretty big.
How many officers?
It's supposed to be 8. They're down to 4 right now.
Okay. So, I mean, even if full staff at 8 for 26 people going out back in the mid to late 90s, that's pretty good.
Back in the day, like, that's what people, you know, when everybody sees us with beards and tattoos, and old timers are like, they never allow that shit back in my day. And I'm like, yeah, well, back in your day, there was 30 people waiting to take the job.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
we're lucky if we can get one to show up to a PT test, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when the boys rally together and say, you know what? I think we like beards. You go, okay.
Yeah.
I think I want to get a tattoo. You know what? As long as it's not, profane or offensive, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
You roll with the punches. Choose your battles.
Yeah, because I know we were getting maybe 5, like to 7, maybe a dozen here and there for positions lately.
Yeah,
I mean that's just I can't think of the last time we had 12, but I mean I don't see the end product. So I don't know how many people actually applied to the PDs I was working at. You know what I mean? Right. I'd see them come in for oral boards and all that sort of stuff. But
yeah,
it was for me. It was my mother's cousin was a Saugus mass cop, and like I told a story before, but the house we were staying in at the time was my grandparents between like where we were living and where we were moving to. So like we had a few months off in between houses and whatnot, or I forget how long it was, but at that time the house was broken into, and for me it was my mother's cousin who came out to take the report that kind of like struck that in me at 7 years old. Said like that looks kind of cool. I might want to take a look at that. But there's when you're growing up, you have to walk that fine line between I want that job, but I also want to experience some things and make sure you don't cross that line. You know what I mean?
I do. Life experience is a good thing. I see some guys. I sat in on some oral boards the other day. 20-year-old kid did a year full of school. Good kid. He's going to be a good cop one day, but he's 20. Mm-hmm. I'm like, get to 23 without fucking up, right?
Yeah.
Pay some bills. Pay some bills, have some drinks, live some life, get dump,
all that
get
stuff.
Some education.
Live some life.
Show me that you can get through a couple of years before I put you on and then find out you can't, right?
Yeah.
So,
but have some life experience before I make you go to a call where you're now telling the parents who are 40 and 50 years old, however old they are, how to raise their child.
Right. Or busting the 22-year-old for DWI that was in your high school class, right?
Yeah. No, I get it. I've been sick. Like I said the other day, it was awful. Absolutely awful.
So, but ultimately, I think that kid's going to be very successful if he decides to stick with it, but he just needs a couple more years.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's it. I could punch my ticket anytime. I'm just waiting for that right job offer, right?
Hopefully. I don't know if you can talk about it. It's up to you if you want to or not, but I mean, obviously with the specialized training solutions and your company and you're building that. I think that's one thing, building as a police officer, or even in military, you're getting away from one career, transitioning to another. I think you have to start building something on your own to help that transition from doing this full time to part time ish or not at all. You know what I mean?
I do exactly know what you mean. Matter of fact, some stuff I don't talk about very often is when my father left state police. He had a mental breakdown. He went right into insurance investigation for a company called CNA Insurance. It was a very technologically advanced field, much more ahead of state police and how they do the reporting and they document stuff and the use of computers. And he was woefully unprepared to make that jump into corporate life. Investigatively, top-notch investigator. Creative, solid detective, incredible knack for investigative process. But the jump to the technology for him was really tough. And he had a mental break, and he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And the fact that he would go back to his barracks 6-7 months later to say hi to the guys, and they didn't know who he was. Like, how can I help you, sir? And he's like, I fucking built this place, right? Like, this is Troop F and New York State Police. Like, it hit him hard.
Yeah.
And so I have the advantage of prior knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So I can look at that and say, I might be a spitting image of my father, but I don't necessarily have to follow in those footsteps. I can start taking the steps now, both with my health, my mental health, and with the idea that I'm not going to be a chief of police forever. I'm at some point going to get out of law enforcement, and that I'm going to find a way to transition safely for my mental health so that I don't fall and slip into that cycle that he did that was just so devastating to him and my family. It was a rough time there.
When did he retire? What year was it?
I want to say 96.
Okay.
My mom had gotten cancer for the second time, and she was fighting that, so he decided to retire so that he could help her fight cancer. She survived it again, and then they moved down to Virginia.
Okay.
So,
yeah, that's, I mean, back in 96, I obviously wasn't around in policing at that point in time, and I was only turning 10 years old in 97. But
yep,
it's hearing the stories of how law enforcement was back then, almost probably even regular civilian life. Mental health was something that they didn't talk about, and
no.
I would say that like our generation, granted, I'm 37 now, but like, generation from mine to a little bit older, like the global war on terror years old, they've done a better job of transitioning, even though they could do better, because a lot of people have come out and started their own businesses, which kind of leave the one foot in the door to what they were doing along to moving into something else, like the entrepreneurship or being a business owner or something like that.
And I think there's a ton more support now. I just sat in on a wellness training, struggle well training. And if anybody who's late in their career, who's thinking about retiring or just retired, highly suggest looking into the Struggle Well Foundation and getting in on one of those trainings. It really helps you to process the things that you don't think are in there, and that brings it up to let you know that you're going to be okay. It is in there. I know for a fact my dad had a gun to his head one night, while he was at the lowest of the low. And I didn't find that out for years. Because back then,
talk to you about it.
What's that?
What made him talk to you about it?
Oh, he never did. One of the friends that took the gun out of his hand told me about it.
Okay.
So did my mom when he was having a real bad time. But there weren't those organizations. There was a suck it up, be a man, stifle it down, right? None of that support was there. And now it is. It is out there. Boulder Crest Foundation, the Struggle Well Initiative. Like there's stuff out there that is helping a lot of people. And so I encourage anybody who's thinking about it, who might see this writing on the wall that their time might be at the end, to look into some of those programs and give themselves the benefit of the doubt to just try it. My old chief, John Monahan, was one of the instructors for those now. And just when you think the guy's giving you everything he could give you in his life, right? He's taught me, how to be a chief. He taught me how to be a good community police officer in Franconia. He's the one that encouraged me to start STS and made some of my first connections. The guy's just he's got a huge heart, and he always look out for me, and he's always he's a giver. And so he called me up and said, "Hey, you need to come down to this." And I was like, "Okay, if he's telling me that this is good for me, I'll trust him." And it was really good. So
one of the reasons why this podcast started back in 2020 now was to basically break the bridge, or I don't know if that's even the right terminology or whatever, but between law enforcement, mental health, I think getting it out there and talking about it is something that we all have to do. And I would almost you like, if a chief came up to me or my supervisor came up and said that they had struggled through mental health for whatever reason, whatever the topic was at the time that they were struggling through, whether it was a divorce, financial, whatever, if they had come out and said that, hey, I was going through issues, this is how I handled it, and this is how I became a better person because of those, I think that a lot more people would be, especially in our line of our profession, a lot more people would want to open up about that. And that stigma that they're, you're going to have the gun taken away, you're going to go on light duty, yada, yada, yada. That can happen because of how bad it can be. It's not going to be the answer for every case. You know what I mean? It's right. maybe 2 out of 10 times that happens, maybe. And that might even 20% might be a high number. So it's not always going to happen. When I went through counseling, it was gone through two different points. When I was going through my divorce, I went through it then. And then when I left full time, I had to go back through it because I went from being full time police officer, shagging calls. In the city I was working at the time, yeah, it's not New York City big or Boston big or anything like that, but Berlin is it can be quite busy, as you're probably aware of.
Toes, I bet.
What's that?
I bet it kept you on your toes.
Oh yeah. And so you're running the calls, and then I went from leaving on a Friday, going part-time, and I was still able to do a lot of stuff, but I was down here now working, before I got the job with the security company running the Bomb Dog. I was working as a contractor for my father-in-law, and there was a lot that I needed to get through in my head. And the counselor that I went to go see at the time said that, because you were running hut calls all the time and going from this to that and whatever it was, all of that adrenaline kind of builds up inside of you. And when you're not doing that anymore, it has no place to go. And so your chemical levels of your body become extremely imbalanced.
Yep.
And I didn't realize that at the time. And we worked it out through a couple different conversations. And I can't remember the type of therapy I went through. It was like not cognitive behavioral, where it was, a lot of talking. It was something like a step up above that. But and
I'm looking for my other book. I have two books. The one that helped me a lot was Emotionally Surviving Law Enforcement.
Okay.
It's a red book. I think I got it down here somewhere. I've given it to so many people. I don't even know if I have it here anymore.
One of those you give away and never want back.
And everybody who reads it, that comes to me and says thanks, right? Because you don't realize that hypervigilance, right? Yeah. The state of hypervigilance doesn't easily shut off.
No.
It doesn't just go off, on, off, on. And when it does go off, on, and off, and you come down, when you're down here, it's a tough place to be. Yeah. And then you got to ramp back up. Some people never even hit that off. They're just staying up here all the time. And they might not be on duty, but they're driving the kids to school, hypervigilance, right? In the grocery store, hypervigilance. They don't ever really get a chance to relax. And when they finally do relax, it takes about a day and a half. You can see these crashes. So the other part, emotionally surviving law enforcement was key to helping me understand some of how we process what we see and do. But this one kind of gives you hope. This is, I talked about it earlier, Struggle Well. This is thriving in the aftermath of trauma. So what they're talking about is, whether we know it or not, we have seen things, right, that the average person doesn't see.
Right.
So statistically, I'm going to butcher this. I know this, but let's say your average citizen in the United States sees about 5 traumatic, like impactful things in their life.
Mm-hmm.
A car crash, a death, or something like that. Their first body. Where we see like 200 a year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so all that trauma that we realize, we're trained to deal with it. This is our job. This is what we do. All that stuff doesn't really make it go away just because that's what we believe. There's still all those bodies. There's still all this stuff. There's still all that hurt. There's still those dead babies. There's still that guy who drowned. There's still that dude who got shot. There's still the dude you couldn't save. Right? All that stuff. Well, this kind of was interesting because it's like, just because that has happened to you doesn't mean that you now live in this broken place.
Right.
There is all this opportunity for you to grow up out of it and struggle well, like to do better than you were before, because you've learned how to process this information and this trauma you've occurred. So I've started using some tips and tricks in my department meetings for these guys. I think they appreciate it that I put the effort into making sure that they're okay mentally, financially, physically, right? I check in with them now. We have a number system that I do, and I say, hey, where you at? And they're like, it's a 1 through 5 thing. Then whatever number they give me, they just got to tell me like why. And so I'm like, hey, you good? I'm like, where you at? I'm a 2. What's up, man? I feel like shit, boss. I got to fight with my wife, or Jesus, like so many bills due. I'm a little stressed out, But if I'm not asking, there's no way that I can help them problem solve, or they can just get it off their chest. Sometimes you just got to listen.
Right.
But so.
No, that's good. Especially, as a chief, taking that time to know your people. I mean, yeah, you're not working in the largest agency out there, but it doesn't matter if you're working a 3-man department or a 300-man department. At least that supervisor or that chief of police knowing their people well enough to ask, and hopefully having that open, honest communication that the person who is feeling like a fucking zero that day can come up to you and be like, yeah, today's not the day. I need to bounce for whatever reason.
Right
You know
on.
what I mean?
And
And
yeah, I absolutely do.
take a couple days to process what's happening, figure out what you need to get done, and the job's going to be here by the time you get back. You know what I mean? That's at least that's how it is in my eyes. That's how I've always
I agree, because what happens is when we force those people, oh, I'm listen, I'm not doing real good today. I'm having a hard time, and you're like, yeah, suck it up, go deal with the public.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Like, we're putting people that are damaged or not at their best, and we're telling them to go out there and police others, right? To go put somebody in check for speeding or talk to them reasonably or whatever. And that's where some of these problems come from, is that we're not taking care of our people, and we're sending them out there to take care of other people.
Yeah, exactly. I'm currently having a fight with my wife. I can't figure out your fucking issue too at the same time. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, I don't know. I can't help you, and that doesn't make a good environment. And like, no, this police department sucks because this person's feeling off that day or whatever it is.
That's right.
You know,
yeah, because you might be their 30th contact of the day, but you're that person's first law enforcement contact of the year, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now they have one experience with the cops, and it was bad.
Yeah.
And you've had 30 experiences that day, and you lost your shit in the 30th one. Yeah. And you got 29 people who love you, and one person thinks you're a douche canoe. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
so
what? You're okay.
So did your father ever end up seeking help for everything or no?
Yeah, he got some therapy, got on some medications, and ironed himself out, and ended up living a very fulfilled life. If my sister heard me say that, she'd laugh at me, but we just lost him a couple of years ago.
Sorry to hear that.
Thanks. He's he was a big presence in our lives, and he broke his ass for us, and I appreciate it now more than ever. And he told me that too. He's like, "You'll never know. You won't know until you're where I am." And every time I get a little older, I'm like, God dang, he was right. Or I think I know what he's talking about.
Yeah, doesn't that suck? And I say that half-heartedly. That doesn't suck because it's bad.
Yeah, like, he was right. His dad's right. He's 47 years old. He's dead, and he's still right.
Yeah. I don't know how you freaking do this, but my dad would say, like, yeah, you're eating me out of the house. Yeah, my son's 2.5, but like, yeah, I get it. Like, my dad was telling me as a teenager, like, you can't eat this much because I can't keep up with the bills. You know what I mean? It's just even those small things of wisdom that they toss at you back then, not even knowing that it was wisdom.
Yep.
How do you think that the state has done with like the academy, law enforcement in New Hampshire? Do you think everyone's done better with the whole mental health thing in law enforcement than they had previously to when you started?
I do. I think that it's becoming more common culture. I think that there's a certain old school genre of cop that think they're going soft, but I think that it's a topic of conversation that needs to be addressed. I think you can see it being addressed with the mandatory training that we have to do with the 3-2s.
Yeah.
I hate doing them like everybody else hates doing them, but you know what? I do them.
Yeah.
And the information in those things are not wrong. This has been studied, and this not everything I agree with, but I think they are doing better. And police standards and training is in a lose-lose situation a lot of the times.
Yeah.
They're going to try to do things one way, and then half the agency is going to say, no, it's ridiculous. Then they say, okay, we'll try to do it this way. The other half of the agency is going to say, no, it's ridiculous. I think they do a very good job, given the task at hand, to crank out the best police officers they can for their state. Now, I do have, I sit a little bit on high there. I think that we have, I think we do a good job in New Hampshire. I
mean, even from when I started in 2010, I don't even think there were 3x2s back then. I forget when that started, but yeah, the mental health aspect of it is definitely changed. And like you said, that old school, quote unquote, old school way of being a police officer or of life at that point in time, I think those guys, men and women, are kind of phasing out. And I think half of it is realizing that they didn't have to deal with the same stressors in normal everyday life that we have to now. I mean, where is it? The anxiety box. Yeah. Right there. That cell phone. And with that comes probably a thousand stressors itself, and even having that in your face while you're trying to accomplish some sort of neutral goal, not even arrest people while you're at a scene, is in itself, it can be a pain.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, 25 years ago, my dad's time, or longer, probably 30. If you were an asshole and messed up, and you had somebody who was a victim of a police wrongdoing, the cop would get disciplined or not, right? And that was it.
Right.
Now, if a cop makes a mistake, not a bigoted wrongdoing, not a racist thing, not a sexual assault thing, but if he makes a mistake on camera, he's done.
And it's public knowledge.
It changes the dynamic of the job and the level of stress on every single call. Mm-hmm. And I think that people don't factor that in when, like, I think the lines are people waiting to get into this profession are showing it.
Right.
You know, should the standard be held high? Absolutely. Should there be accountability? Absolutely. Should mistakes be avoided at all costs? Absolutely. But are you going to be able to avoid 100% mistakes, margin of error? Like, people fuck up.
Yeah,
exactly. And when they fuck up, they get held accountable for their fuck up. But man, it's a tricky place to be a cop these days.
Yeah. So you have 27 years in, and last
22. He had 26.
Okay.
I have 22 in now.
Okay. And last, how many as chief?
7.
7. Has it been everything you ever wanted it to be?
No, that is the most stressful job of my life. I say this to these guys, they don't believe me, with the exception of maybe tonight. I work harder in this role than any other law enforcement role I ever worked in.
Really?
Yeah, like I remember when I was a sergeant, you know, I'd come in, as long as my numbers were good, my tasks were done, the arrests were on the board, my reports were filed, I could like pick and choose my activity for the day. It was definitely a choose your own adventure. Yeah. I had to keep this community happy and my boss happy, and that was easy, right? So, you know, if I was given 75, 80% of my shift, I'd be okay. I can tell you now I give about 90% of my day shifts. When I walk in the morning and I sit down in the office, with the exception of being sick or constant distractions, I'm pretty dialed in. And it's you know, what it comes down to is I got people relying on me, right? Like if I don't do my job well and this thing falls apart, I got families that are relying on this income. I have a community that's looking to me to provide this service. So I do feel the pressure of wanting to make sure I have a good community relations so that these people want us to be here and that my guys appreciate the job that they have. So yeah, I feel like this chief of police job is the hardest I've ever worked.
Well, it seems to be like, at least by the way you're talking, what I get is almost the most rewarding at the same time, because you get the impact to not only the the community, but like the guys you work with, or men or women you work with, and make them better and help them become better officers at the same time, and hopefully better supervisors too.
Yeah, and they make me better. Like, you know, I got to come in and put up or shut up. I can't be sitting here telling them do this, and I'm not. You know, here
Chief,
I am.
You get out there stopping cars. Come on now.
Oh, I did. I stopped him today. Left the center. The guy almost hit me.
So you are we allowed to talk about what you have going on in the spring, or no? Is that still?
So I don't think it's any secret. It's still preliminary. I'm doing lesson plans, and it's on the schedule, and I'm working on the PowerPoints, and the Ridgeline has invited me to teach a couple of intro classes. It's called On-Ramp. So if you have never taken any formal training before and you're not quite ready to jump into one of their advanced classes, then this would be a good place to start.
Yeah. So
I'm working for continuity on the lesson plan with Nate Parasol. He's been great. Mm-hmm. To try to make sure that, you know, the language that I'm using, the tactics that I'm teaching in the basic levels are consistent with what they're going to be getting when they go to the more advanced classes. Makes sense. So right now, in order to keep elite training elite, you have to have an option for the folks that aren't ready for elite, right? If you get 10 guys out there who are all looking to go, you know, step up their game, and you got 3 of them over there that are safety concerns. Yeah. Now you have a place for those people with safety concerns to start. and it's still at the Ridgeline facility. I mean, it's an incredible facility to train at, in the mountains of New Hampshire, in Dalton. So I'm pretty blessed that they've even considered me for the opportunity. I hope that I don't disappoint. I hope that I can put my best foot forward, and I'm not cut from the same cloth as those guys. I'm still made of fabric. I'm still fabric. Yeah,
I think you are in an aspect.
Not the same cloth.
Don't sell yourself short, because I mean, I've seen you shoot, and just the way shooting next to you the entire weekend, just the tips and whatnot I was picking up from you, and I can't remember the gentleman's name all the way to the other side of me, from PA, but just from you guys just being there, and just this tip or this trick, or just watching and observing what you're doing to how do I get better myself. And I think you're going to do good. Now, is it something that, like, person doesn't even own a firearm, can they come over there and rent one per se, or do they have to actually own one?
They'd have to have their own firearm. I think we're going to have holsters available. I'm not sure all the details of that stuff yet. We got to see what we get. We don't know what we don't know.
Right.
There will be requirements to have a holster. What we're going to be able to provide for people, we're not really sure. But it's for those folks that have never had any formal training, right? We're going to make sure that we have the draw stroke down, that we work on the fundamentals of grip, that we are right on top of our muzzle control and our weapons manipulation, and our, locking our bolts to the rear and locking our slides to the rear without flagging everybody, right? Without doing the old pointing a gun at everybody.
Which I've seen officers do.
So I think that's going to be a really good place to start. And the hopes is that by the time they get done with this one-day class, that they will be able to have a knowledge base that will allow them to be successful if they decide to continue to take Ridgeline classes. So I'm super excited to even be considered to have the opportunity. Maybe this is the start of something really cool. I hope, but you never know. We're going to take it as it comes, right? When day one comes, we'll do day one. When day two comes, we'll do day two, and we'll just roll with it and see how it goes. Yeah. It has to be lucrative for them. It has to be, make sense for me. And so I think they got something here, and I think it could be very lucrative once these classes get established and the general public sees that this is a new offering that Ridgeline has.
Yeah, Northern New Hampshire is one of those. Or New Hampshire itself is a unique state when it comes to firearms, because I would almost classify it as like the south of the north. But it's Sig Sauer that and a couple other brands that are either downstate or out by the Newport area that are either making firearms or putting on training itself. And outside of that, as you get further north, you had Team O'Neill, but you didn't have any offered firearms classes.
Right.
Argument. And now, because of the Team O'Neill and Ridgeline partnership, for lack of better terms, you have that. And I think it's, at least up in that area, I think it'll be something good for people who haven't had the time to, they didn't grow up around firearms. They haven't had the time to, take any intro classes, and whether they're just getting their first firearm or it's been years they've actually had a firearm and held it.
Well, so the last 2 years, Alex has been kicking those newbies to me, and gratefully so. People would call him and it's like, I'm new to firearms. Is there a class I can take? And he would send them my contact and reply and attach me to the reply. And they'd end up taking private lessons or jumping in on one of my classes. And it's been working out great. I think this is a way where he doesn't have, Ridgeline can kind of keep them in-house, keep them on the website, keep them on the property, keep them getting the same education that they're seeking, rather than passing it outside of their facility, or keep it on their website, which is a good plan. And I have no qualms about that at all. STS is busy enough doing my other stuff. I just pause and listen to the radio. So I, listen, if this goes real good and they want me, they got me.
Yeah. Now, when you say you offer private classes for your STS, how do you offer the class? Is it one-on-one?
Yep. So it's like choose your own adventure. If you go on the website, it's sts-nh.com, and you look under the class offerings, you'll see one that says private lessons. The other way to get to it is to go right to the training calendar. Every day on the training calendar, you click on it, has a link. That link will bring you to the private lesson slots. In that slot is a drop-down menu. You can pick the date and time you want. I do 3-hour blocks. You can buy 2 3-hour blocks back to back if you want. It's $60 an hour. I just went up a little bit, but it's not too bad. You can have as many people as you want, up to 4 people. So if you and 2 girlfriends wanted to come to the range and have a private one-on-one lesson for 3 hours, you can get a lot done in that short amount of time, where it's not too much information in a day.
Clarify, no girlfriends, 1 wife.
Yep, I know. I have lots of groups of young ladies who like, oh, this would be fun for me and my girlfriends to do. And they'll sign up 2 or 3 at a time, or a mother-son, or a husband-wife. Sometimes teaching your spouse is not always the easiest thing. So they hire the third party, which works out fine for me. And you can select additional participants right on there, pay and reserve the spot online, and then you'll get an email about a week out, kind of firming up what it is you want to learn on. Everybody's different. Everybody has different goals. So it's not specialized training if it's generic. So I reach out, I get your goals, and I line up a lesson to achieve those goals. Whether it's you want to get in the competition, you want to learn to go faster, you want to just learn how this gun that my husband just got me works. It's in the box. I don't know what I'm doing, right? There's a lot of that. Whatever it is, we do it. And then spattered throughout the training calendar, or as you go down through the listings, you'll see different offerings for Pistol 101, Intro to Carbine or Patrol Rifle. Been getting into the law enforcement training more. I find that there's not a lot of money to send 6 or 7 guys to a badass training.
No.
But for a price, right, that's hopefully more cost effective, I have mobile trailers. I have ranges on wheels. And I will come down to your pit in your agency, and I will put on a specialized training to meet the goals of your PD's needs. For example, the last one we did, they were transitioning to red dots. So they wanted to work on vehicle work and red dot transition drills. So we taught 2 PDs in a joint training to do just that. Half a day of vehicle work where we discussed tactics and we skipped rounds and we did all that, shot through glass. And the other half of the day was drill specific on red dot usage, finding it, tracking it, presenting it, maintenance, the whole 9. So, that's a way that the police department can spend, a couple $1,000s and get their entire PD with a training certificate from Specialized Training Solutions, and the credit for their training hours. I have a permission from Police Standards and Training to issue those training hours as long as I keep track of my lesson plans, and all the drills and attendance lists and same things we do for all our law enforcement trainings.
Right.
So I think it's a pretty good bang for your buck. You don't have to maintain the stuff. The stuff gets packed up by me and my cohort, Jared Mitchell. We pack up the trailers and we blow out of your range. Nobody ever knows we were there. But I've seen people spend $1,200 on a dueling tree because that's what they had to have at the police range. And 2 years later, it's Swiss cheese, rusted, and missing a plate and off in the bushes. Right?
Stay off in the wood line over there.
Yeah, for $1,200, I could come teach a small PD and bring dueling trees and stars and steel targets and swingers, poppers, all the cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I could do competition-based performance.
I think that's definitely a good market because, like you were saying, for that amount of money, you can actually bring it to the agency instead of having to spend $1,200 on one class that's 3 hours away, and now that $1,200 quickly works itself into about $2,500 because of per diem, and then pay salary for the person, travel, all that sort of stuff. So I think that's a good market for you. And
I hope so. I really enjoy doing it. That's my passion, right? I've been in law enforcement a long time. I want to make sure that the law enforcement community knows what they're doing with their firearms. And if I can go to them and provide them with an intense training that is going to push their skill set, to make them a little bit better prepared, that's what I want to do. That's the mission. That's the goal.
Well, that's good. I like it, buddy. I like it. Before we get out of here, I'm trying to end these podcasts on like some sort of a funny note now. So
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, do you have any funny story? I mean, the one of you getting arrested was actually pretty good. I appreciated that one. Do
No
you
worries.
have do you have another one that you want to share with us?
Oh man, if I wasn't so foggy in the head.
Doesn't have to be just law enforcement related, but hey.
Geez, there's so many dumb things that I've done. Well, I can't let anybody ever see it. My taser video is probably the most emasculating thing ever.
I think I remember you telling me that in class. I don't know why it came up.
I know the one guy who's got the copy of it, and until I retire, that better stay hidden. I screamed like a 6-year-old girl.
Is it last name of Ball? Does he have it?
No, Rick doesn't have it.
Okay, no. All right. If he did, I was going to pepper him for it.
The guys that are still on the job that are there, they know exactly what I'm talking about. So I was overweight. I got conned into getting tased. I did not want to get tased. I knew I didn't have to get tased. Straight up got pure pressured into it.
Right.
Fine. Okay, let's go. I'm nervous as all get out. I got Collins on my right and Jarvis on my, I think Jarvis was on the right. And Ailing was shooting me with the fucking thing. And all I could think of is that all he has to do is this. Hit the safety. Stop it. He can just stop it. Anytime he can stop it, right? He doesn't need to let me ride 5 seconds. He can stop it. So as soon as those probes hit, my voice cracks as loud and as high-pitched as you can imagine. And all I say is, stop it, for 4 seconds as I get lowered to the ground. That's all my brain could get out. I wanted him to stop it because all he had to do is hit this fucking safety. What that has translated into was this little girl screaming, stop it, stop it, stop it. I mean, my safety guys they could barely bring me to the ground. They were laughing so hard. And for days after that, I'd come into my shift and my coworker, who's now my sergeant, who knows better than this video, doesn't come out until I retire. I don't care if it breaks YouTube. I don't ever want to see it. He would put it on a loop. So I would walk in and it'd be stop.
That's awesome.
Just me screaming.
Oh, that's great.
That was
what a way to rub it in, huh?
Oh yeah. They'd all be cracking up back in there when I'd be coming into work, and they'd all be laughing, and they're just freaking this bitch ass scream on a loop. So
I'm going to use that as your intro video to the actual podcast. I'll figure it out and
there you go.
Get it from who it is and use that. But Mac, I appreciate you finally doing this podcast and coming and spending your time with me tonight. And
thanks for having me. Dude. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You have anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
If you've ever thought about doing tactical games, and you live in the Middle Grafton County area, Littleton, Lisbon, Bath, anywhere, if you want to come down and travel to it, we are doing a TG82 program, which is an 8-week training program.
TG82.
TG82. It's the second one. It's a tactical games 8-week program, number 2. Open to civilians this time. It's a really cool program. It's incentive based. You put up $600, and if you complete 7 out of the 8 days, you get $400 back.
Okay.
If you miss 2, you're out. You're out $600.
And this is
you can still come to the training.
Right. This is for leading up to the tactical games itself?
Yes. So if you complete the 7 out of 8, everybody gets 1 mulligan. If you complete 7 out of 8 trainings, you'll get your $400 in cash back, which is your entrance fee to tactical games. Tactical games is about $380, and then you got $20 for freaking ibuprofen.
No, where is that being held this year up in Hampshire?
This year it's 6 Hours hosting it. At the end of July, last weekend in July. I already signed up. I'm committed. Dave Wentworth agreed to be my partner again. I've already started CrossFit. because that's what it is. It's CrossFit with guns.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So for the next 3 months, 4 months, I'm going to be CrossFitting, and then
he's gonna whip your ass into gear.
Yeah, and then in March, April, we're going to start. There'll be an informational meeting. You'll be able to find it all on the website or follow the Instagram, Specialized Training Solutions on Instagram. There's a link to it on the website. The website's easier. You and I both did that. We made really long Instagram handles. It's hard to find us.
Yeah, it's fucking awful.
Yeah. So if you go to the website,
my email address is the same thing. I don't know why the fuck I did that.
I live and learn.
Yeah.
STS-nh.com. Stay tuned on that. And if you see something that tickles your pickles, you can go ahead and sign up or shoot me an email.
Sounds good, buddy. Well, I appreciate you you coming out here and actually, meeting me online and doing this this podcast, dude. And I hope to have you back. And I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
We'll have to get together like midsummer, see how everything's going.
Definitely, buddy.
All right. Good luck.